I look back on my life and the careers, lives of people who I work with, and a lot of times I can trace those big jumps in their income to trials, like the ones that you guys had in COVID. Juice, like you tearing your ACL, putting a different type of content out there that speaks to people who are trying to train with injuries. Sometimes those things, like in the moment, it sucks. But you look back 5 years later and you're like, man, that's the best thing that ever happened to me. When I look at you all's content from somebody who works out at home, there are little things that just make them phenomenal videos. Juice, to follow along, even though you fought it. You know, having the preview video of the move before the move starts, saying what weights you're working with, but just giving people a guide so they're just not just picking up random dumbbells and hurting their back or something. Like having modifications, this person's doing this. Just these little things that if you're just watching, you're like, oh, this is a cool video. As a person who owns a business, I know that each part of that is a very conscious decision. And the thing that probably a lot of your audience doesn't know that I know from Brandon is that you all are self-taught and you record and edit on your own. So where are you getting those tips, those ideas? Because it's not like there's somebody over you saying, oh, here's how we do it here.
Yeah. A lot of it has just been trial and error and just listening to your audience. There's a lot of things that we've been recommended. People want this, people want that. And our first year, or I guess after COVID, we responded to every single comment. Every single one. We spent probably 2 hours a day responding to comments, what people wanted. If somebody said, oh, this is a great workout, I love it, we would respond to it.
Yeah.
So we got really connected with our audience from the jump, and they pretty much molded our channel. And then of course there are a lot of other great channels that I took inspiration from that were in the game well before we were, but I was like, how can I do this and make it ours, you know, make it something that's unique and different in our style
and something that we want to do consistently.
Correctly.
Because if it's not fun for us and you can't do it consistently, then you do it a few times and then we get bored with it, or you're not consistent with it, and that's the whole name of the game there. But I think too, as we grew in the channel, we were able to just, if you go back to the very first follow along workout, that was in an old apartment where we didn't have the space to film together. So I had to do mine, he had to do his, and the editing was literally split screen. So that took us 4 hours.
With a computer that wasn't at the time, I didn't know anything about specs and like RAM and all that stuff. So it was super slow. It took me probably a week to edit this 20-minute workout video. So from the very beginning, we had trials of just trying to just put this content out. So over time, when we got more recommendations, when we got a lot of constructive criticism, we didn't take it personal. Like people was like, yo, this timer sucks. Like,
or they would say we need another view, and I'm like, we don't have the space.
I only got one camera.
So, and that's the other thing, we were able to buy another camera, which allowed us to give another view. We were able to find a space that we could consistently rent and also afford. When we first started, spaces were like $300 an hour, and so if you're spending 4 hours just to film one workout, that wasn't going to be cost effective. So once we figured out a workflow, we have a space we can consistently rent. We were able to get faster computers, more cameras, like to be able to grow with them. The recommendations we were giving, we were able to provide because we were able to grow within it.
And with all that, I do majority of the editing as far as the YouTube, and she's getting better at it. I've been teaching her, and it's helped over time just because now that she's learning, it's allowing us to be more efficient with the content we put out. But YouTube University, man, that's what I call it. You can learn
anything.
Literally anything. When I learned how to make graphics for the channel, the timer, everything is, if people ask for it, I tried my best to figure out how to do it and put it on the channel. You know, it gave me an efficient workflow. Cause that's another thing. There were some things I wanted to include, but it just took so long to put the videos out. So I found a common ground of what can I learn and what can I continue to put out to where it's giving people what they want, and I can continue to add on and make it better.
We're getting to the end of this episode, so I'm going to ask you some questions that we ask of all our guests, but especially couples. We've talked about the things that you bring from childhood with you when it comes to money. When you are operating at your best and you think about how you are with money, what are some of the behaviors that you're showing?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I think Honestly, not necessarily a behavior, but I think we both have this mindset of not forgetting where we came from. Because a lot of times when things get hard, we kind of go back to say, man, we've been through so much together. It's been a journey, all the struggles that we went to get to this point. So when things get hard, we tap into that past, to tap into the times where things weren't so great, or we were just grinding. Or I remember the days we just prayed for this, where we are now.
Yeah.
Like we were hoping that the stuff that we were putting out would pay off and get to this point. So I think, yeah, like I said, it's not necessarily a behavior per se, but it's more so just understanding we put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears literally to get to this point. And as long as we kind of never forget that and keep that in our minds, sky's the limit, honestly, for us.